Welcome back to another episode of Digital Dating with Anonymous Andrew. And tonight I have a very special guest because we just found out we have something very much in common. And so I'd like to welcome Lisa Johnson. And Lisa is a high conflict divorce strategist. And I have to tell you, I've done 300 episodes, and every few episodes, I hear a new title to a new career type thing. And that's a new one for me. Like you hear dating coaches, but then I hear spiritual something, dating coach. So Lisa is a high conflict divorce strategist. Lisa, welcome to the show and tell us what that means.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I was like, okay, digital dating, we're going to figure out how being a high conflict divorce strategist overlaps with dating. And we promise we're going to connect it later on in this episode. But as a high conflict divorce strategist, I also specialize in something that you might not have heard of, and that is legal abuse. So, my partner, Chris, and I, we work with men and women all over the world in the worst divorces, separations, custody battles, and co parenting hell. And so their exes have basically been using the legal system to wear them down and bleed them dry financially. So these are the situations that go on for years that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes, if not more, where
I can
kids are
imagine.
weaponized and turned against one parent. Like that's all we deal with. My background is I'm a state certified domestic violence advocate and a trained crisis counselor. I used to teach high school English, and my partner, Chris, is a certified high conflict divorce coach. So we basically help people save as much time and money and energy in the process as possible because these situations are very, very different from normal divorce and
So,
separation.
how would somebody find you? So, and I would imagine, and this is just logical thinking, is high profile divorces. So people with high incomes, like
No, no,
no,
not
not
necessarily.
necessarily.
No, no.
So
So,
so it's not
yeah.
a class thing.
No,
It's
it's not a class thing at all, but generally it's people whose exes are, like their own personal terrorist, who have a clinging kind of hatred
okay.
and will do
I know,
anything to punish and destroy them. That's our clientele.
like their whole mission in the rest of their life is to bring their ex spouse down,
Yes.
hurt the children, do as much damage as they possibly can. And I just don't understand why people really have to do that. I mean, just some of them 5 or 10 years earlier were in love and honeymooning and taking vows and what you probably don't know this, but what happens
I do
in
know. I do know this.
tell us.
Okay.
Because when I got married and we loved each other and we blah blah blah, but 7 or 8 years in, it just bottomed out and we just it was a long story. I'm not gonna tell you, but if you had said to us we were going to be divorced in 7 years, I would have laughed. I would have said, "No, she's the love of my life."
Mhm.
Well, what happens
Okay.
sometimes?
So, from the beginning, people often don't realize when they're involved with someone with a personality disorder or someone with an active addiction. So, these are very, very different. This is 18% of the population. This is not normal separation or divorce like you described, where you kind of just, the relationship deteriorates. This relationship was probably a lie from the beginning. The person was manipulating you to get you where they wanted and then to try to tear you down. So, in these situations, normally people they break up, they're angry, it settles down and they both decide let's go on with our lives, let's move on. But in high conflict cases like ours, the anger does not subside.
Gets
And
worse.
so, right.
Yeah.
So imagine like the dynamic. There's a couple and the relationship ends, but one person has some kind of mental issue, personality disorder. And instead of it just being like, okay, things didn't work out, it it triggers a deep sense of abandonment within them that
Mhm.
connects back to when they were a child. It doesn't matter whose fault the end of the relationship was, even if their behavior contributed to it, even if they're the one who broke up. It's like, "This relationship is ending, I feel abandoned, but I don't wanna deal with that. I don't wanna deal with the sense of failure that this marriage, let's say, has broken up, that I wasn't the perfect husband or wife. And so instead of dealing with those uncomfortable feelings, instead I am going to do something called splitting, where I now see the world as that I am the victim and my ex is the villain. And I have to convince everybody that I didn't do anything wrong, that they are evil and I'm angelic. And so I will scorch the earth to prove that, again, that same dynamic. I'm the villain. I'm the victim and they're the villain. And so, like I mentioned, there's this clinging kind of hate, and this is what they do in the legal system, where they will just keep this thing going for as long as possible. They want the opposite of moving on with their lives. They want to keep the conflict going because it's an audience and it's a stage of where you can say, look, everybody, this
But
person's
doesn't
so
that
awful.
cost money?
Costs tons of money unless you are pro se or self-represented, but even that costs time and money and energy.
So
But
that's
that
why
is the
that's
situation.
why I assumed there was a higher class of people doing this because divorce attorneys who drag or the people that drag these out can like I saw in your bio hundreds of thousands of dollars to go through this. In my divorce, and you mentioned addiction. So I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I have a couple. I have more than a decade under my belt. Let's just say that.
Well, that
Of-
congratulations. That's a
Thank you.
really big deal.
I got to be careful how I say this. My wife and I both had problems with that at there, and I'm not going to tell her story, and I'm not going to label her anything. Um, we we found that we were struggling financially, so in the divorce, and we couldn't afford attorneys, each of us. So we ended up going to one attorney, and what he ended up doing was saying, "Well, let's do this. Let's file bankruptcy for both of you, and I'll represent both of you." Blah blah blah, and everything was fine until she said, "But I want the kids," because we had
Uh,
two kids, and I said, "Well, wait. What do you mean you want them? Like full custody?" And I was like, "Yeah, but." I got to be careful here. But you tested positive for this, and I didn't. So why should you get, And that's where that got. But it didn't get messy. My lawyer just said, you know what? And tell me if this is true. Many of the children at two, at least my children were young, 2 and 4, 1 and 3. They don't know a lot of what's going on because they don't know the family dynamic or the family structure until they're 5, 6, 7, 8. Um, do, I just lost the train of thought of my question.
Okay,
Do,
so it sounds like your question was, do they not know what's going on? But they do know what's going on. They don't understand the specifics, but they feel
okay,
energy. Remember, divorce is not what destroys kids, it's conflict. So even if there's no physical fighting or yelling and screaming, they are absorbing that energy.
the
They
energy.
know when something is wrong.
So the myth of
Yeah.
staying together for the kids is just bad.
Really bad, and here's why. So, imagine, like, you're in a very unhealthy, unhappy relationship, and you think that your kids, even if you act great in front of the kids, that they're gonna know not to do what you guys are doing. But we gravitate towards what's familiar and what's normal. So you and your partner are modeling that this is how it's supposed to be. It doesn't matter what you tell them. This is their normal.
They
And this is what they will go for
they
because that's
watch.
what they see. That's right. So
Yeah, they
you are the
watch.
biggest role model. So I also thought that I had to stay for the sake of the kids. That's a way that my ex kept me in the relationship because he said, if you divorce me, you're gonna ruin our kids' lives. You're gonna destroy this intact family. In my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be responsible for like ruining the rest of my kids' future. But it was the opposite. It was that once I got out and I was able to get my sense of self back and get into a new healthy relationship. Now I've been modeling for my kids what it should look like. They see me happy, they're not responsible for my emotional needs. And so they have, as they've gotten older, they've also gotten, luckily, in some very healthy relationships,
So
not good.
how long ago was your divorce that started this whole thing?
So probably about 11 years, but before that, the marriage really ended 2 years before, yeah, 2 years
Which
before
many
before that.
marriages do. They end
Yeah,
long before the divorce. They
yeah.
just live in misery for 2 or 3 years until somebody pulls the plug, right? Or pulls
Right,
the
yeah,
parachute chute.
2013 it ended, 2015 I filed for divorce, 2016 was the divorce.
You filed, okay, and then he fought you on it.
He acted like he wasn't going to fight me on it. Was absolutely astonished that it took a year and $100,000 that I'm gonna be paying back forever. I had to take out loans. And then I spent 10 years in the legal system dealing with him. So I represented myself for 7.5 years through about 100 court appearances in New York and Connecticut because he wouldn't, stick to our agreement, which he himself voluntarily signed.
So, if he wouldn't stick to the agreement that he voluntarily signed and the judge had it in front of him, so why can't the judge say, "Joe, you signed this. This is the agreement, and I'm not going to allow Lisa to go through 10 years of." I mean, obviously he can't force like that, but why couldn't the judge rule in your favor on that?
Well, so it was in my favor. I mean, an agreement is actually stronger than a court order because we both voluntarily agreed. And one big piece of foresight my attorney had was at the end of that year and the divorce, my attorney said, Your ex is not going to comply with this agreement. Be
But
ready
he
for it. He's
signed a
not
piece
going
of
to.
paper.
Right. But this is somebody that we knew was a problem. So he said, "You are going to have to be ready to represent yourself and
Mhm.
go back to get enforcement because
Okay.
he's not gonna do it." And that's something that in our first book, we have a whole section on of, like, indicators of high conflict divorce and, post-separation legal abuse, which is what I went through for all those years and that all of our clients are usually dealing with. It's not easy because the legal system, everything, so for example, when he didn't comply with our agreement, because again, he didn't want this to end, I had to go back and file motions to make him comply with the agreement that he himself signed, but there were hidden assets, there were things that had to be modified, there were promises that he said he made, for example, in the agreement, it said both of us agreed that had we stayed together, we'd have each contributed to our kids' college education. Every single week, we ta- with the kid's grandfather, his father who since passed away. During the divorce, he'd say, "Oh, I'm going to pay for the kids' college. I pay for all my grandkids' college." But as soon as we separated, my ex said, my father's not paying and I'm not gonna help pay for college. And I was just like, "What?" Because I have a master's degree, like, I was a high school English teacher, like, education is a huge priority for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And our kids are smart, like, why shouldn't they be able to go to college? And especially, he's rich, like, why would you not want your kid to why wouldn't you pay for
Right.
college of all things? But that was the way to punish me through the kids was to deny, um, their opportunities to go to college, to not pay proper child support and alimony they'd agree to. So I had to keep going back to court for years with multiple judges over COVID to say, look at the situation. And they would say, Sir, you signed this agreement, just like you said, you need to pay her. And then he wouldn't do it. And then I have to go back again and say, look at this. And then penalties and interest and more and splitting it in two states. It was about the lack of enforcement. That's the problem with many of the court systems
And
is
I've been
failure.
there because even after I did all that, she ended up getting custody and I got visitation and I had to pay child support. And back then you got stubs in the mail and you would mail it in. And then of course I'm gonna admit this was back in my drinking days. We're going back 30 years. I would miss a couple of payments here and there. And then when you miss enough, they come after you, right? They'll come and say, you're missing, and then they started uh, revoking or suspending your driver's license, the
I was
men's
about to
driver's
say.
license.
Yeah,
So,
license, passport, you could lose your one of our clients' exes was a hairdresser, he lost his license to work.
which I understand the reasoning to do that, not reasoning, but if they can't work, how can they make that money? So, like,
That's
if I
that's a
can't drive
great
to
point.
work, I
Yeah,
can't make the money, but I should have thought about that before I decided not to pay the child support. Bottom line, they ended up garnishing my wages. So, which is what the smartest thing to do is just garnish the wages, which is
yeah. Child support's like a whole other controversial thing, but ours was not a situation where he was unable to pay. He was more than able to pay. He
Right.
just figured,
So
this is how I get back."
what how did the whole thing end? Wrap it up.
Oh, just, like, dozens and dozens of court appearances, and I mean, if he had just paid what he was supposed to pay,
In the beginning.
he would have paid, like, what he ended up paying was, like, more than double of what
Mm.
he owed because I feel like his lawyers were saying, you know, they were always like, "Let's you don't need to follow court orders, like, let's keep trying this." So
So
it was ridiculous.
do you think I wonder, do lawyers sometimes guide them in this direction, which is not good, just so they can, what do they call that? When they cushion their pockets, when they can, when they make more money, when the
Yeah,
lawyers
right, right. Yeah, I mean, most lawyers good lawyers do not do that, but we call the lawyers that do that bottom feeders, and there was one lawyer that I interviewed, and she said, you know, 'cause I was like, "How why would a lawyer take a client like this, like a terrible person?" She said, "That's the those are the ones that keep our office open."
yeah, they keep
Why?
he's got
Why?
money and they
Yeah,
as long as they keep billing
money and
him,
conflict.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Wow. So at the end, you ended up with the kids and you got your child support.
well, we had on paper joint physical custody, joint legal custody, complete open visitation. He just never showed up.
So after all that, he didn't even step up as a father. Oh my.
No, he said you can have the kids, but it was money. He didn't want to pay anything. So that was the problem.
Okay.
This is a
I
whole other
If
story. But
this was a divorce podcast, I would go deeper into this and let's get really detailed on it because I have lots of questions. But it's not. It's a dating podcast. And well, but before we switch gears, tell the folks you have a book out already, one published, and you have another one coming out.
yes. So our first book, well, so my business is called Been There Got Out. First book, Been There, Got Out, Toxic
Look at that.
Relationship, High
Very cool.
Conflict Divorce, and How to Stay Sane Under Insane Circumstances. Our next book is coming out in March 26th. It's called When Your Ex Turns the Kids Against You, since unfortunately that is one of the most common things that we see in our community and affects 22 million divorced parents in America and Canada alone. It's awful. We have a course called How to Communicate with Your Ex Without Destroying Your Case or Losing Your Mind, since that's what triggers many people's PTSD is having to co-parent with a terrorist. We have a podcast, we have a YouTube channel, our website is beentheregotout.com. We have a big social media presence, and we have another course coming out about alienation and other things. And yeah, we're very busy.
Not that you have to be, but neither of you, you and your husband now are lawyers, correct?
We're not lawyers, and he's not my husband, but he's
Okay,
like
your
my husband.
partner. Okay,
Yeah, my
uh,
partner.
just habit of saying that.
I know, everybody says
Yeah,
husband, I'm just
and,
scared of
and and after 10 years, I lived with somebody after my first divorce. I lived with somebody for 10 years, and in New York State, I think they become common law. And I called her my wife after like 11 years, and then of course, as soon as I started calling her my wife, that's when we broke up. So
yeah, yeah,
that was like the the voodoo bad whatever drinks. Okay, I would so love to dig deeper into this. Um, if next season I decide to go down the road of divorce or breakups, or because actually the first season was about all about breakups, but grieving from them. But somewhere in there, you came out shining. So back in 20, I think you said 2013, 14 or something.
yeah,
And you, in our pre conference of doing the podcast, you had said to me that you were with a wonderful man, the man I just thought was your husband. I think it's Bart,
Chris,
Chris.
yeah,
What did I say? I saw Bart somewhere at the
I don't
bottom.
know.
Okay.
Barry, his
Um,
last name is Barry.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, my arm. Okay. Oh, okay. I had a long day.
that's
Um,
okay.
Plus, I have vertigo. I'm suffering from a very bad case of vertigo
Oh my gosh.
with the weather and my sinuses. And I went to a neurologist today. I got an MRI tomorrow. And I'm just a mess. Tell us about your story about meeting him and because I think it's a, like, it sounds like a love story.
It is a love story,
Let's
and
hear it.
wrote a blog post about it, getting my socks knocked off and best midlife, best first date, best
So first, you didn't meet on a dating app, so let's just get that out.
we
Oh, you
did.
did? Okay, I
Yes.
misunderstood you.
That's why you're allowing me to talk on this podcast.
Which, yeah, I think,
I had to have something, and it was the digital like, we did meet on a dating app.
okay. Okay, yeah, I did say that I would like you to have something about dating, and you said something about you met your love of your life. But okay, yes, dating apps are what I talk about a lot. I'm not pro dating app per se, because they work, they're a tool, but people don't know how to use them. And the dating apps are all owned by one conglomerate. I don't know if you know that. Most of the big ones like Match and eHarmony, and they're all owned by one Bumble. So until they change their algorithms and make something different. And there's a whole bunch of new AI dating apps coming on the scene, which I think are really, really cool. And I'm playing around with them. Anyway, do you want to name the dating app you met on?
Yeah, we met on Match.com. It was
There
my
you
first
go.
ever experience on a dating app because I got together with my ex when I was really young, and I'm a bit of a technophobe, and so I missed the whole, like, online dating app thing until after, I was in my mid-40s
Sure.
when we separated, and so I was really excited because I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be like a filing system, and they're gonna I'm so curious to see who they put me with, like how the app does this thing." So so I went online. I actually did something mind blowing without realizing it at the time, and that was in writing my dating profile. So in the process, I really thought about what I liked in another human being, like qualities that I found attractive, which I stupidly had never done before I got married. And I realized as I was making like a list of things that I like that my ex-husband actually didn't meet any of those qualities. Like, for example, somebody with really good social skills, somebody who's passionate with about at least two things that have nothing to do with me. So I'm not personally responsible for his happiness. Somebody that has close long-term relationships with family and friends. Somebody who likes to move furniture around because I love going to yard sales and doing a lot of artsy stuff in case you couldn't tell even though I didn't paint that.
Yeah, you
But
got an
I
artsy background.
yes,
Yep.
I love, like, buying stuff and, like, moving things around and painting and exploring and doing mosaics, and my ex hated it. He would say, "Stop moving things, stop churning," and I'd be like, Why?" So I wanted somebody who was happy to move furniture around,
I have
and
a story about that, but go ahead.
so that was on my list. And then, someone who volunteers, because and then my ex never volunteered. I volunteer all the time. And then and I think one of the last things on the list was a dry sense of humor. I've thought a dry sense of humor is one of the sexiest things ever. My ex
Really?
did not have a dry sense of humor. And I thought I'm never gonna find someone with a dry sense of humor. But I'll just put it out there. And literally 3 weeks later, my first actual Match.com date was my current partner, and now we've been together for more than 10 and a half years.
So you swiped on him, he swiped on
No
you.
no swipe. So it was like, I think so he found me like, I guess Match would send a list of, like, 10 people a day.
Okay.
And so Chris describes that evening, he said he was really late, he was really tired, he got the da he had been on the site for, like, 9 months or something. So he got the list and he was kinda like, "Ugh." He said that many of the profiles were the same, where it was like, women would say something like, "I'm just as comfortable in a cocktail dress as I am reading the New York Times and drinking
In my
coffee on my"
sweats.
Yes, yeah, yeah, he said it was all, like, the same template,
Mhm.
and it was so boring, and I'm lucky enough to have a job that lets me travel the world and that kind of thing. He was like,
Yeah.
"Ugh."
Boring.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so mine, but he thought, "All right, I'm paying for this thing, I might as well at least try." So he looked and, he saw mine, he said, which was very different. Actually, when he wrote to me, he said, "I read your profile and it actually sounds like I wrote it." So I put a couple pictures of myself. One I had like zippered, tattooed, like bloody eyelids because I love dressing up for Halloween. I had like this ghoulish
Okay, cool.
costume. I had me with like loads of books because I started and ran a book sale for our library for 16 years. And just like natural, like I don't do like sexy picture stuff. So just like myself and this simple profile.
Which is
And
what you're supposed to do. I took a whole season on how to set up profiles.
really?
Yeah, it's just, and it's really is just show your pictures of you. One, two face shots, two body shots, and then two shots of who you are. Your what you do socially, what sport you might be into. Just show us what you do,
Uh-huh.
and and this is just what my guest and I came to. The two body shots are just to show us your. We just think that two headshots, which are close, and then two body shots, show us. Because I hate to. This was a very sore topic. There, when you don't show your body, you're hiding something. So so and women have to understand that there are men out there that like BBW, that like larger, curvy women. And but when I see a woman with like who's one on one today, 8 headshots, one after the other, and I'm like, what are you hiding? You're hiding something.
Interesting.
And I'm not that I'm, maybe would be attracted to if she had a few extra pounds, but I don't know. And I can't text her and go, "Hey, by the way, you have all headshots. Are you fat?" I can't say that,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So, anyway, so we were going over the pictures and how we think that they should be perceived. You sound like you got it down. He picked your profile out right away. So, like, you stood out from the rest, which is what you really should do. You need to
Yeah,
stand out.
I didn't know, but I guess I was doing it right without realizing it. And, yeah, I did post body shots because I'm happy with my body and I, take care of myself, but I wasn't
Well,
they
and
weren't.
that's another thing. Yeah, if you take care of yourself and you're proud of how you listen, I'm I got a couple years up there, but I very, very, very active. Pickleball and bicycling on the boardwalk and a lot of exercise. And except that in the wintertime and around this holidays, the candies, the sweets come out and so we put on 10, 15 pounds. But and so I might have the dad bod during Christmas.
That's okay, and, like, we're
That's
not
okay.
20.
Yeah, yeah, I was not 20, so and God, when I was 20, I had a picture here the other day. I was 130, 140. I looked like Jackson Brown, if you remember who he
Yeah,
is.
I remember Jackson Brown. I could
Yeah,
see that.
I did very well. So, anyway, so, all right, so so tell us about your first date. You met
Okay. So um I actually hadn't read his profile. I just like liked the way that he wrote to me. He wrote a very short thing and I liked his voice. And I'm a writer and Chris doesn't think he's a writer, but he's an amazing writer. And so for about 4 days we wrote back and forth and then we realized we lived 12 minutes apart. So, yeah, so we decided to meet at this restaurant and in my profile I was like I am not looking for a serious relationship. Like I am in the middle of a divorce
bad
separation
divorce.
right
Yeah,
now.
you just came out of hell,
Yeah, I
right?
was like, I want I mean, I had just started hell. I didn't even know what I was in for. So I just said, I have 2 teen tweens. I just wanna have a bagel or go to a movie. Like, I'm not interested in something serious, but I just wanna have fun. My friends were all like, "I can't wait to live vicariously through you. It's gonna be so cool." So, we ended up meeting at this restaurant called the Rye Bar and Grill that was in between us, and I walk in, I've got like my skull shirt, jeans, thigh high steampunky boots. My hair is like wild. And Chris is standing there and he's got these wire rimmed glasses down to the end of his nose, Wall Street Journal tucked under his arm, khaki chinos, and a plaid, like the most preppy. And I just looked and he goes, and I always tease him because it'd be like, he was like, Lisa? I said, yeah. And I'm like, we both were like, no way. And then he started talking, and he talks really fast because his background's in marketing, and I was like, "Oh, he's one of these marketing guys." Like, is he maybe he's, like, a little bit effeminate because he talks so fast, and I talk really fast, and so I was just like, "This like, I'm completely not attracted to him," and he's the same, like but I thought but let's just see what happens because I know that we're gonna get along because we had these back and forth letters just in
Great
the past few
text.
days. Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's just see, like, why not? So we ended up sitting down and we had like a 2.5 hour lunch. And during that time, um, he's very animated and he is very enthusiastic and he uses his hands a lot like us New Yorkers do, and he almost like knocked his water over and so passionate and enthusiastic about stuff that even though as we were talking, I learned that he was a former frat boy. I've never dated anyone in a fraternity. I was like, never. He's super into football. I have zero interest in football.
Mm.
But at some point during that conversation, I was like, "This is so freaking crazy, but I feel like I'm talking to the male version of me."
Okay, and you were 2.5 hours into
Yeah.
my Mac does that.
Yay!
2 hours into I mean, all I gotta do is sometimes I do this, I get bubbles.
Yes, yes.
I the audience has no idea what we're talking about. You talk for 2.5 hours, and that when you go on a date with somebody, the first date, it's do you have a couple protocols, and it depends on who you talk to. First date could be a meet and greet, 20 minutes, 30 minutes at Starbucks, but you guys, did you go for drinks or dinner?
No, it was lunch. We had lunch.
Lunch, okay.
Yeah,
But
and he
lunch
had to
doesn't go
go.
2 and he had to what?
He had to go. He was like, "I have to go because I have a meeting," and I was like, "This is
But
so much fun."
but
And
it
I
stayed two
work
and a
from
half
home.
hours.
Yeah, after 2.5 hours, he was
So
like, "I
that
gotta go
meant
to the meeting."
yeah. So that just tells me because I had that. I met with somebody a while back, and the date went on. It was supposed to be a meet and greet, and then we said, I'm having fun. Do you want to continue? And she was like, absolutely. So we went to another place. It was a bar, but I don't have to drink. I can go to a bar, but blah, blah, blah. So the ended up like you, it was like 3 hours later, I took her home and it was supposed to be a first meet and greet. So sometimes they do work and you do click off. Unfortunately, two dates later, it blew up. But, all right. So, how'd you when you left? I'm doing this for the audience to learn about how to put a really good date together. So you went on this lunch. 2.5 hours later, he goes to his meeting. You go off in your skull shirt. Where
Okay, but we have to pause. We have to pause because how it ended is really
that's what
important.
I. Okay, tell us how it ended.
So when we got up to leave and we walked out, he didn't try to kiss me, he didn't try to hug me, he didn't shake my hand or anything like that, and I really appreciated that because I wasn't ready for
And he
anything like
sensed
that on
that.
the
He
first day.
knew that.
So once I got and he was like, "I didn't even know, but whatever." Like, I went and
A
sat
hero.
in my car, and for the first time in my entire life, remember I was in my mid-40s, I paused and was like, "How do I feel right now?" I feel good. Like, I had fun. That was a really fun time. Would I go out with this guy again? Yeah. Like, that was just I had a really, really good time, and I feel really relaxed and comfortable. And taking that moment to pause and think about how I felt was again, like, it was an epiphany. Like, wow, I'm in my body, comfortable, like, checking in with myself. In the past, I kinda let myself be led, like, most of the men I dated, they were interested in me. I didn't think about if I actually liked them. It was like, "Oh, well, this is just what you do." But the first time I thought, "I like this person too."
He read you very well. He knew that you were struggling. At some point, you had told him all about the divorce and
No, no, I had this was the
not
beginning.
even in texting. You didn't tell him.
No, I mean, this was we I my ex had moved out of the relationship had been over for a couple of years in my head, but my ex stayed in the home, and he had moved out, like, a month before physically, so I was, like, breathing my fresh air, and I had just started to date because I didn't wanna start dating while he was still in the
No.
house. So I was just like, "Ah, like, I'm gonna go out and have fun," um, and so it was really, like, the beginning.
He had no idea.
I had no idea. It was the beginning of the divorce process.
No, but I mean, he had no idea that you were going through that. You didn't bring it up
No, because I wasn't going through it fully. It was the
fully.
start of
Okay.
the
It
year
just
of divorce,
started.
and his divorce actually ended up taking 3 years and costing $300,000. So
God.
we had both been separated when we met, and then we started placing bets on whose was gonna end sooner because it was taking so long and so expensive, and both of us are burning through money, and writing promissory notes to pay back these loans.
The point I was getting at is I have my own protocols about, do you kiss on the first date? And it depends. Um, the last woman that I went out with many years ago, well, not many, but it was the ended 3 years ago. The first date we went on, she actually brought a friend because she was from out of the country. She was kind of new here, and an immigrant, and I think she just wanted to be more comfortable. She asked me, "Can I bring a friend?" And I said, "Absolutely." It was an Applebee's lunch, and then the second date was alone, and it was a picnic. That is when we started really having a wonderful time because we were able to talk freely and there was no third person. And I remember her standing up, and I could men I do very well at body language. I can read body language, and I remember just standing up, and she was glowing. We were just having wine and cheese. She was drinking. I wasn't drinking, but she was having cheese and crackers. And she stood up, and she just looked so beautiful in the sun. And I said to her, "You know how beautiful you are." But long story short is, I just walked up to her and I just gently said, "May I kiss you?" And she just melted like at her. She just kind of, you could see her knees buckle a little bit, and she just like nodded her head up and down. So, but men have, you have to do that. You have to read the woman's language, her posture, where she's at. And even though the date went well for 2.5 hours on lunch, it's appropriate. It was appropriate to not kiss you or to touch you in any way. When did you exchange numbers, and so what's the next step there?
Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the second date, which was the first kiss.
Same as mine. Go ahead. I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did exchange numbers. He had asked for my number like when we were just writing to each other in those 4 days. I said, let's first meet and see how it goes. So I had given him my number. And then, so that was on a Friday. And then on Saturday, he went to Pennsylvania with his kids to do some football thing. I went to New York City to see some of my girlfriends who had no idea what was going on with my life. And we were texting each other and like sending each other pictures of what we were up to. And it felt immediately like just so comfortable, like we already knew each other. It wasn't romantic, it was just comfortable. And so the next day was Sunday, and he said, do you want to meet for a couple of hours, just at a bar? Like he didn't drink. I don't drink either. And so we decided just to meet and like sit there and have seltzer and peanuts and stuff. So we ended up talking, and it was much more comfortable because he was dressed down. Like he wasn't the preppy. He was like wearing a sweatshirt and shorts because it turned out that he coached like 4 different teams. So I was like, okay, I feel better already. He's not like super prep. And then we sat there and talked. And at some point he turned to me, goes, you know, I had this thought when I woke up this morning that we're gonna kiss. And I was like horrified. What? Like, why would you say something like that to me? That's so forward. I barely know you. We've only gone out once. Oh my God. I mean, and we're in our 40s, but still, it was like scary. So I said, I think we should wait. We should wait like a week or something because, we just met. And he goes, oh, well, if we wait a week, then I'm going to have to get fireworks. I'm going to have to hire a mariachi band. And so he's just funny. So that was
So
so
he's
charming. Yeah. So
very
he made a joke
clever.
out of
I
it.
like
Yeah.
that.
So then he made me laugh. And then it was April and it was really cold. And so at the end of the date, he walked me to my car. And he is big. He actually has lost like 70 something pounds since then, but he was like a big teddy bear type. And it was cold. And I remember we were standing by the car and he looked down at me and he was like, Can I hug you?" And I was like, "Okay." And he was so warm. I'm always cold, so it was like he was so warm. And just like what you did, he looked down at me and he was like, "Can I kiss you?" And I said, "Okay." And then he did, and we both were like, boom, like Bobby Brady and the Brady Bunch with the fireworks. I could not believe it. It was like I was 16 years old again. It was
Hmm.
absolute amazing. And since then, I felt like I have been shot with Cupid's arrow and just
Wow, nice.
completely attracted and in love
Well,
with him.
Lisa, you had gone through, you were just entering into the most difficult time of your life is getting out of the first marriage. And I think this man came along, he was your knight in shining armor, and the two of you hit it off. and you felt comfortable. And when he put his arms around you in the cold weather, that gave you warmth, it gave you security. And and then he did the gentlemanly thing and asked you every step. These, I have I get emails and I get instant, social media, and also have friends that listen to the podcast, younger friends that are females, boys that I'm going to call them boys, the 20 to 25 to 30 to 35-year olds, they have no clue what they're doing. They show up with the wrinkly shirts and and then they want to cuddle. What's with the cuddling? Have you heard this?
No,
This
but
is
that's a little too much for me. Like,
they don't
I'd be
want to
like, "I
kiss.
don't know." They don't wanna
One
kiss?
more, a friend of mine called me up not too long ago. She goes, "I went on a date with a guy, and he wants to go home, wants to cuddle. Let's go home, we'll cuddle and watch a movie." And she's on the first date, and she goes, I
That's
don't want
too
to cuddle with you."
yeah,
She goes,
well,
"Cuddling is a little bit more intimate
yeah,
than,
yeah,
I'd rather give you a blowjob than cuddle." Anyway,
it
I think he did the right thing. I think
he did, 'cause it
men have to read the woman's body language and know when the right time is. And had you said no, took the hug, but maybe said no to the kiss, he would have. I'm sure come back with another joke or something about all right, the fireworks would have,
yeah. He
you
said
know.
he was worried about getting friend zoned, which he probably would have been, so
Well,
he
that's a
made a big
big
move.
worry.
Yeah,
I just did that a couple of months ago. I met somebody and I found her attractive and we played pickleball. And after we went out for a couple of coffees and blah, blah, blah. And then I finally hit it. I said, "I'd like to take you out for dinner and like see if this goes anywhere." And she says, "Oh no." She said, "You are in the friend zone." And just put,
my
and,
god.
but she had been married for a long, long time, got out of the marriage, was retired, and she was like living the life of freedom, and she did not want to get tied down. So some women, they're
Yeah,
not they're
but
not ready
better
for
for
that.
her to be clear, right, than string you
Not,
along?
and you know what? We are very good friends today. She's down in Florida right now, but we're really, I would say, good friends and play a lot of pickleball together. And I still would like to date her, but uh, if it comes about, it comes about. If it doesn't, I'm one of the greatest places to meet women is pickleball. I should write a book on that because
You
I've
should.
met so many women on pickleball. So,
Wow.
Lisa, we got to start to wrap up.
Okay.
Um, so tell us where we can find your books and where we can find you on social media, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, super easy. So my website is beenthere.gotout.com. If you just search "Been There Got Out," you'll find our stuff everywhere. We're at "Been There Got Out" with little underscores between the words on Instagram. We're on TikTok, Facebook, X, like everywhere. The book is on Amazon. The next book's going to be on Amazon. The courses are on our website. Again, beenthere.gotout.com. Podcast has Been There Got Out. And the YouTube channel's also Been There Got Out. So super
And
easy.
these are all for to help people that are going through difficult divorces,
Yes,
very difficult.
and my partner is the male half of Been There Got Out. So we work
Okay.
together
So you
and
work with the women, he works with the men.
no, we both work with everybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Um, I may have jumped the gun. I just want to know, are you and so you're together 10 years with Chris,
mhm. Yeah,
right?
yep.
Um, one, why no marriage? Did he propose, or you guys just figure you're in the divorce industry? This, if it ain't broke,
No,
don't fix it.
no, so we like I said, we lived 12 minutes apart. We still live 12 minutes apart. He lives in New York and I live in Connecticut,
So
and
you never moved in.
no, living apart together. So we both have 2 kids. We're going through our crazy divorces that took years, and we felt that we did not wanna disrupt our
Makes
children's
sense.
lives. And so, our ki he his youngest just went off to college, and now we are finally planning on moving in together. So that's a big step. But I think from me being in court for 10 years, I just have this thing where I'm, like, a little scared of the word husband. He wants to get married, but he's like, "It doesn't really matter because 'cause we're already together all this time, and I know he's my person." But, yeah, we'll see. I just
Take it easy.
don't know.
You don't live together for a while to make sure that that's you've been together for 10 years and it's been working, but once you share that bathroom, and I know you've been living together, but it all of a sudden you see another side of a person.
That's
So
what everybody says.
yeah, you just really do, and, I would imagine you slept over each other's houses, but even as their sleeping patterns can annoy you, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden, those little things that annoy everybody, so don't if marriage is not in, like, needs don't make it happen if it's gonna ruin everything. You've got something really good going, keep going with it.
Yeah.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today, it was really good, we made it work, and, we'll talk to you soon, all right?
Yeah,
Good
thank you
luck
so
with
much.
that, and
It's been
I'll put all your information in the show notes.
okay, thanks so much.
Oh, thank you.